This is an excerpt from Peter Ralston's new book, Ending Unnecessary Suffering, coming out in March of 2025. Loneliness is one of the more core conditions for pretty much everybody, but it is most often buried under all of life's distractions, anything that keeps the mind busy and occupied. Yet, there are occasions when we confront our loneliness, and sometimes conditions press us into an experience of loneliness, especially during periods where others are absent from our lives. I suspect most people have, at least from time to time, felt alone, isolated, perhaps unloved or discarded, or some such. For some people, this is a major aspect of their self-experience. For others, just an occasional thing. In either case, there is a deeper issue at play that involves our very sense of self. What goes on so that one could feel lonely? You might desire but not have a close intimate relationship or partnership. This is a common form of loneliness. Yet, even when there are people around, you can feel isolated and cut off. Certainly while being lonely, your attention will very likely fall into your own private and isolated inner world. Such a focus tends to press you to contract into your sense of isolation even more. These are some of the dynamics involved in loneliness, but that doesn't answer the question. What mental activity causes loneliness? Clearly, you are imagining that your happiness is dependent on some experience other than what you have, and this can only be produced by others and not you. In contrast, your current experience of living life by yourself is seen as lacking. You might also imagine others don't care about you, or that something is wrong with you such that no one wants to be around you. Yet these last 2 points are explanations you make up as to why you are alone, but are still not the core cause, and are really just rubbing salt in the wound, so to speak. The foundation ideation that sets the stage for such suffering stems from the fact that you live in a private inner world that only you experience, and this is held as the place where you reside. But no one else can ever also reside in this place, so you will always be alone there, and the only avenue to connect with another private inner world is through communication. Here, you might be able to develop a sense of connection, but this can't be done without others, and so you feel you need others, and often a special other, in order to be intimately connected. When this isn't happening, you can easily feel alone, isolated, and lonely. Acknowledging that such a deep connection with another is usually rather rare means most of the time you live on an island of separation. With or without people, to avoid suffering loneliness, you probably feel the need to be distracted, to have something fill your mind and experience, so you don't have to face the deep loneliness that you feel just being a self. Clearly, you aren't okay with being alone. You aren't okay with merely being, and you need some form of distraction from this condition. It seems that your mere existence as a being is incomplete, and you need the imagined promise that someone or others can somehow complete your experience. These ideations are foundational to this lonely form of suffering. The fundamental delusion of humanity is to suppose that I am here and you are out there. Yasutani Roshi. Did you follow that? Let's go over it again. The core concept is that you aren't okay just being you, and you need others to complete you in order to make you happy. Since you live in an existentially isolated private inner self world, the only avenue to connect to another is through communication. And you need others for that. So in this way, living as an incomplete self tends to cause loneliness. What might also be true beyond this basic human condition is that you personally might have an existential assumption that you are unlovable or not worthy of being loved or accepted as you are, which isn't going to help matters. To understand more about existential assumptions, since some of these ideations might be founded on them, see Chapter 22 in the Book of Not Knowing, or attend relevant workshops. It can be a tricky domain to understand, so work needs to be done. The bottom line is that they are simply aspects of what you are doing with your mind. They tend to be unconscious and overlooked, but becoming conscious of them allows you to stop doing them. Independent of freedom from some existential assumption, your experience of loneliness requires imagining another possible world that you don't have. I know it might seem like you have no choice about it, as if it is just a fact of circumstance. And what makes it even worse, this notion is supported by the culture in which you live. Yet, try to grasp where that fact lives. It lives solely in your imagination, and what you say this condition means to you. You are alone, and you imagine not being alone would be a more satisfying experience. In contrast to an imagined circumstance, you see your current experience as negative and unacceptable. You desire or long for something that you don't have. Sound familiar? Again, you assess that you, by yourself, are not good enough, are not complete without someone else to validate you. Your self-experience is felt to be lacking and incomplete. Therefore, you judge your current imagined experience as negative and painful. Why do I say current imagined experience? Certainly, if it is your experience, you aren't imagining it, but experiencing it, right? Actually, not really. What you currently experience is your body, and what you perceive as occurring both physically and conceptually. But unless you just stubbed your toe or something, there is no pain or suffering in this experience. And with or without pain, there is no loneliness there. The loneliness is added through imagining comparisons as mentioned above, and so what is currently experienced is given a negative meaning. This is added, and it is imagined. Stop imagining this added layer to your experience, and it doesn't exist, and the suffering doesn't arise. Again, I acknowledge that since we are social animals and have also developed an overactive ability to imagine all sorts of stuff, this change of mind could seem difficult. I know for the vast majority of people, it is a difficult challenge to overcome, because we think such experiences as loneliness are inevitable, a fact that we must suffer. So it is easy to overlook the power we have to simply not compare what is factually occurring with this imagined experience that is not occurring. But, hard as it is to accept, a deep loneliness tends to be a core experience for most humans, even when it is overridden with distractions. When your attention is being filled with active life activities, you won't notice the loneliness aspect, nor necessarily should you. But it is still a dynamic that should be dealt with. It will come around to bite you in the ass at some point, especially as you get older. It is useful to work on completing yourself, grasping you are already complete and whole, and that your experience is all that is needed, no matter what it is. This goes a long way toward ending this malady. We will go into this more in the section on being complete later on. A quote I used in another book speaks to this malady and suggests it is deeper than most of us think. Try being alone without any form of distraction, and you will see how quickly you want to get away from yourself and forget what you are. That is why this enormous structure of professional amusement is so prominent a part of what we call civilization. If you observe, you will see that people the world over are becoming more and more distracted, increasingly sophisticated and worldly. Because we are inwardly empty, dull, mediocre, we use our relationships and our social reforms as a means of escaping ourselves. I wonder if you have noticed how lonely most people are. And to escape from loneliness, we run to temples, churches, or mosques. We dress up and attend social functions, read, and so on. If you inquire a little into boredom, you will find that the cause of it is loneliness. It is in order to escape from loneliness that we want to be together. We want to be entertained, to have distractions of every kind, gurus, religious ceremonies, prayers, or the latest novel. Being inwardly lonely, we become mere spectators in life, and we can be the players only when we understand loneliness and go beyond it, because beyond it lies the real treasure. J. Krishnamurti. Happiness is not a reward, it is a consequence. Suffering is not a punishment, it is a result. Robert Greene Ingersoll. Ending Unnecessary Suffering is coming out in March of 2025. To pre-order now, click the link in the description.